Hey guys, today we're going to be setting off a sprinkler head. Now if you guys are here for the video only to see the sprinkler head activation, go ahead and skip to this time right here, and that's where I will actually start setting things off. You want to know the reason behind this and know a little bit more of what's going on with my plans and with the sprinkler system, then stick around for a little bit and I'm going to explain some stuff. You guys may remember I put up a video about adding a sprinkler pump to my sprinkler system. And it turns out I don't think I'm going to do it because I don't really think I should be pulling suction on this half-inch line coming out here underground without upgrading it to at least 3/4 inch, because I don't think a pump is going to be able to pull much more water through it than what we're currently getting. We're currently getting about 7.3, 7.4 gallons per minute, which the reason I had a problem with that is the sprinkler heads that I'm using on this sprinkler system, these guys right here. These sprinkler heads that I'm using are a K3 sprinkler head. Now the K3 is referring to the flow rate that these are supposed to get. These actually have LF on here for low flow. These are meant for residential purposes where you probably don't have a 4-inch or a 6-inch, maybe even an 8-inch water main, where you probably just have 3/4 inch, or like my house is a 1-inch, and in this case it's only half an inch coming out here into this building, so you're not going to get a high flow rate out of it. So these sprinkler heads are designed to work off of that lower flow rate, and the water is forced through a very tight hole on these compared to larger sprinkler heads made for commercial applications. The hole is a lot more restricted, forcing that water to come out a lot quicker when it hits the diffuser or the deflector, whatever you want to call that thing. So it should still maintain a good wide spray pattern, even if it's not actually putting out that much water. Thing is that even though they're meant for low flow, they still call for at least 11 gallons per minute, which, as I just said, I'm getting 7.3 gallons per minute. So we're not quite at that 11 gallons per minute now, are we? Now that is for max coverage that these sprinkler heads are meant to do. They're meant to cover a 7-foot radius or 14-foot circle around them, basically, which this is why I'm kind of doing this test, because I don't think I actually need that full 14 feet, because I have probably more sprinkler heads in a closer area than usual because I've got all these small rooms and weird shapes going on in this building. You can see we have a sprinkler head here doing this front area, and then a little bit back, because it would be a stretch for this one to be expected to cover all this area. We got one here. So these are probably only about 8 feet apart, and that one is probably only around 7 feet to its furthest distance, but then some of the sides are much closer. This is really the only sprinkler head up here that is really expected to do its full 14 feet coverage, as this room is 14 feet wide this way, and the sprinkler head is right dead in the middle of this upper space. Obviously, this one handles this area, and that sprinkler head back there handles that back area, which is only an 8-foot by 8-foot section it's really responsible for. The bathroom is a smaller area, so that one really isn't expected to do too much. Then we also have this storage room sprinkler head down here, sprinkler up there, and this very small room over here with a head. And then I'm not going to show you in the attic, but on this end of the building where it's separated off, there's 2 in that attic section, and there's 1 in this attic section over the bathroom and this area. Moral of the story, most of them aren't expected to cover the full 14 feet because they don't have 14 feet to cover. There's not that much space available for them to spray outwards in anyways. So that leads me to, how much do we actually need that 11 gallons per minute, or will 7.3 get a fairly sufficient job done? Because this pump that I have bought for the sprinkler system is still returnable, and it would also require me doing a lot of actual changes with the pipe and the setup overall, and would be somewhat of a costly project. So if I can get by without it, that would be something I would absolutely like to do. And just out of curiosity too, it would be cool to see what these sprinkler heads actually look like when they activate. I don't want to set off a bunch of them because they cost me about 30 bucks a piece to order. So you're not just going to go through them like Tic Tacs, that's for sure. So I think I'll just set off one. I want to keep one in the fire alarm panel as a spare, or maybe even two. I might order more of these guys once I set this one off. So, the thing is for obvious reasons, I don't want to set one off in the building, as it'll make a big mess, get things wet, and that's just not something I'm looking for. So I'm going to do it off of a hose. However, I want to still actually mimic the fire alarm system getting set off, because that's another thing. We've never actually got to test the flow with a actual sprinkler flow. Sure, we can set it off with the sprinkler drain, but that hole in the sprinkler head is very restricted, a lot more restricted than this 1/2 inch pipe. It's probably more about 3/8 or maybe 1/4 inch. Will it actually let enough water get through to actually trip the flow switch? These are all good questions that have never actually been answered with this system. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to still use the hose. Let me show you here. I have the hose, which is kind of kinked up. It'll unkink once there's pressure. And I just went to the store this morning to get some parts because I made some adapters. Because the hose on this end, you can see it's 3/4 inch male thread, and on this end, it's 3/4 inch female thread. The sprinkler heads themselves are 1/2 inch male thread, therefore being what they thread into is 1/2 inch female thread. So that's what we have these for. This is 1/2 inch male thread. We'll thread into there, and then we have 3/4 inch male thread. So the hose, this will go into the fixed permanent sprinkler head location in the building. This can thread into the hose. And then on the other end, I have this adapter, which is 3/4 inch female thread, which will thread onto the other end of the hose. And then we have 1/2 inch female thread sprinkler head can then thread into. If I go grab one, then the sprinkler head can thread into there. Obviously, we'll add some Teflon tape onto it and stuff, but basically that's the idea here. This is the sprinkler head I'm going to choose in this room, because this one is absolutely worst case scenario for flow. It's sort of downstream, furthest of everything. It goes through the most 90s and the most bends and the most up and down. So if anyone's going to have the lowest flow, it's going to be this one right here, versus one of these first ones off a straight pipe obviously won't be so much restricted. So let's take this guy down and thread in those adapters we made up. I'm going to actually use this one to set off, since this one's got pretty scratched up because it's been removed a few different times. So this is the one I'm actually going to set off and permanently activate. We'll put this fresh, clean, brand new one back up here after the fact. So for anyone that doesn't know sprinkler systems, the way they operate are the sprinkler heads, at least this is for wet type systems. There's also dry systems which are similar as far as the sprinkler heads activating, and then there's deluge and halon releasing systems, any of those type of gas suppression systems. They're entirely differently, but at least dry and wet systems, the sprinkler heads have a glass bulb in them, which is filled up with or some sort of expanding type liquid where it expands with heat, and these ones activate at 68 degrees Celsius or 155 degrees Fahrenheit. There's multiple different levels of heat activation that sprinkler heads will activate at. This is probably the most common one out there. There are some that activate at lower temperatures as well as much higher temperatures depending on where they are installed. There's also rapid response sprinkler heads like these ones where they have a very small glass tube, and sometimes you'll see ones with thicker glass tubes which are known as standard response sprinkler heads. Like I said, this is only a K3 sprinkler head, so the hole the water is forced through is very small, and as well as the deflection head is quite small on it, though there are different styles of deflection heads. There's also upright sprinkler heads and pendant mount. This is a pendant mount where it would usually be mounted in this orientation, but upright ones would be like this, and the deflection head on them would look different. There's also sidewall sprinklers too. Also, not all sprinkler heads use a glass bulb filled with a liquid. Some of them use a fusible link piece of metal where the metal will actually heat up and melt and break away once it's at its activation temperature, though all of them are the same principle where they hold back a plug. And then dry and wet sprinkler systems differ in the sense of what's actually in the pipe pressurizing behind it. My system is a wet system, meaning it's filled with water. There are also dry systems where it's filled with air, or I think sometimes they're filled with a certain gas. Usually, from my experience, they're just filled with air. And then there's a special type of valve at the actual sprinkler riser that once that air is released, if a head goes off, it'll then let the water into the system. Those are used in something like outdoor sprinkler heads. For example, if we look over at that school, there are sprinkler heads under this soffit area all the way down. Those are a dry sprinkler system because if there was water in it, it would freeze in the wintertime and break because I live in Canada and it gets below zero. Some places may not have that issue. As far as once a sprinkler head goes off, the sprinkler system is tied into the fire alarm system, most likely to set the fire alarm system off, as typically if a sprinkler head's gone off, there's a fire, and even if there isn't, it should be evacuating the building and drawing attention to it, as it will cause a lot of damage. So the sprinkler system sets off the fire alarm system with what's known as a flow switch. This is a flow switch right here, where there is a paddle going into the pipe that gets pushed up once the water starts flowing. They come in various different sizes depending on the pipe that it is fitted onto. So those are some sprinkler system basics. Let's finish installing our test setup. This is where I'm going to mount the sprinkler head on this ladder here, and I'm going to turn on the water so we can get some of the air out of the line, and then we'll put the sprinkler head on. Turn the water on slowly so we don't trip the flow switch. We seem to have a bit of a leak. However, the water is coming out. Since we do have a leak, I will just leave it not pressurized until we're ready to go. Okay guys, this is our sprinkler head all set up here. This is what I'm going to set it up with. I've got the torch at the end of this broom handle here. So I should be able to minimize how much I get myself wet with this. I got a couple camera angles. I'm going to have this one here, which is going to come with me inside when I turn on the water. And then I'm going to put it on this tripod, zoomed in on the sprinkler head. I have a slow-mo running 240 frames per second up here. This guy will be running up there. And I've got another camera over there. This one will be the best as it's my newest phone, my 14 Pro Max. So this one should get a pretty good shot of it. That iPhone up there will be running slow-mo. Like I said, that video will probably look like crap. All right, almost forgot this. I'm going to have the drone up in the air doing an aerial shot of it. So that should maybe be able to show the spread of it pretty good. I'm also going to put a coat on because I think I might get a little wet. All right. You can see we're holding around 20 psi with the sprinkler head active. Okay guys, I would say we're about good here. We are holding quite a bit better of a spray pattern than I thought we might be getting actually. Doesn't show up well on camera actually. But we are going to right there and to right there. You can see there, that's the remains of the sprinkler head. I'm not sure where the little plug went. It could have gone anywhere really. We'll give it a quick look later. You can see the ground is pretty soaked. You can see where it really sprayed. We do have some water on the floor. It did get a little messy in here. But that is what it is. I'm going to go ahead and reset the system even though the flow's not up. We can at least get the strobes to turn off and quit flashing. Looks like we got this done in perfect time because Mother Nature's sprinkler has also just gone off. It's sunny out, but it's certainly raining. By the way, these threads weren't the ones that were the problem. It was the threads going from the other end of it to the actual hose. It's both ends that have the hose threaded side were the issue because the threads on that don't match up with those threads on there. Okay folks, well here is the sprinkler head and what is left of it. I've brought it inside and I did find the plug. You can see how restricted that hole is on the bottom of this sprinkler head, which is, like I talked about earlier, why it's a K3 low flow sprinkler head, as that hole is smaller so the water's kind of forced to start moving a little quicker at the hole, I think is the idea. So then when it hits the deflector, it's going faster to spread out better. Even if there's less water overall, it still spreads out. Here is the actual plug. This is the end of it right here that would get held up by the glass. And this is the side that would go down inside like that. You can see there is a little plastic rubbery piece to help it seal better. It's not even really rubber, it's just kind of plastic, which would sit just like that if this thing will focus right. And that would plug it up like that. You would think you could stick an Allen key in there and remove this little set screw to replace the glass, but I'm sure it's probably like a factory tamper seal. They fill it up with some sort of glue or epoxy, some sort of resin, something in there, so you can't actually unscrew it, probably so people don't try and use or fix their sprinkler and then do it improperly and then it starts leaking, that sort of thing. Seems understandable to me. I'm going to keep this though, and yeah. Alrighty guys, well that was the sprinkler demo. Let me talk about it for a little bit. The results we have are actually better than I expected, considering they want 11 gallons per minute and I'm only giving them around 7 7.5 gallons per minute. I thought we were going to get worse results. It's still, like, I don't think we're quite getting the 14 feet of spread that it says. It's spread out on the grass probably around 10 feet, which isn't really bad considering it was only mounted on a 6-foot ladder, so it was only 6 feet tall. These ones in here are mounted higher, so we'd probably get closer around 12 feet of spread. And I think that is based off an 8-foot ceiling. Considering we are about 12 to 13 foot ceiling right there for that one, it might actually still spread out pretty decently. Is it what the manufacturer's spec? Is it that good? No, not quite. But you know what? I'm not worried about adding a pump to my sprinkler system. It overcomplicates it more, so not like overcomplicating it like it's too much, but it does add some complexity to it. And it's a lot more cost and work. So you know what? I think it works fine for what we have. I think it's still certainly better than nothing. And also you got to consider is this was worst case scenario. This was furthest sprinkler down the line. Not really. That's kind of really the furthest, that one, and the attic one. But their run there is a lot more straight. This thing goes through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 90s. And it's the end of this line here because it goes to that one first, then drops down to this one, and from there it runs through the wall, up there, over to that one, and then it makes it back into the main line. So that was the most restricted sprinkler head I could find, which, I mean, I did that on purpose because I wanted to base this off worst case scenario. Also, look at this hose. The thing's a big kinked up mess. I'm sure that wasn't helping. So considering all of those things, I think it was actually okay. So let me know what you guys think. I think really, end of the day, it's much better than not having any sprinkler. And it's probably still gonna, like, most of the rooms, most of them will cover it completely. Like take that area, for example. It's only 8 feet by 8 foot area that one sprinkler head's in the middle of. Considering the sprinkler head's mounted at around 8.5, 9 feet tall, because they're pretty tall ceilings in here. By the time it's getting to the floor, I think that water would be pretty well on every wall, spread out well. And especially for these little rooms, the place would be absolutely drenched. It would have spread the water perfectly. So, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I thought this was a pretty fun video to do. I hope you guys enjoyed it too, because I did sacrifice a sprinkler for it. So, give it a thumbs up for that, right? If you guys enjoyed it. If you do have any comments or questions, make sure to put those in the comment section. And if you enjoy my videos and want to see more of them, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That would help me out and I'd appreciate it. So yeah, guys, that's going to do it for this video. So thank you for watching.